Hello, I am Kimberly Hogsted, and this event is brought to you by Global Genes. We are a leading global patient advocacy organization dedicated to alleviating the challenges and barriers for the rare disease community. A rare disease is defined as a condition that affects fewer than 200,000 people in the United States. In Europe, rare disease is defined as fewer than 1 in 2,000. Rare is rare. However, with more than 7,000 rare diseases, collectively, the rare disease community includes nearly 30 million Americans and 400 million people worldwide. It makes us the largest patient population in the world. Including our family members, caregivers, friends, and neighbors, nearly 4 out of 5 people are impacted by a rare disease. Compounded by the response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the majority of the rare disease community has had interruptions in or lost many of the life-saving services they depend upon, including regular access to healthcare, clinical trials and research, mental health services, and special education services. Global Genes in the rare disease community has worked tirelessly over the past 6 months to ensure continuity of care for our vulnerable rare families. It is with great pride at Global Genes that we have the privilege to do this work as we connect, empower, and inspire the rare disease community and beyond. Now, to kick off the conversation, I would like to introduce you to our moderator for today's session, Dakota Fisher-Vance, Patient Advocacy Manager at Horizon Therapeutics. Dakota, you're an amazing lady. Take it away.
Welcome everyone to the kickoff of Global Genes Live. My name is Dakota Fisher-Vance, and as a rare young adult, I can't think of anything better to spend this evening than as your moderator. There's so many exciting things planned for you this week, starting of course with this session on the next generation of rare changemakers. Be sure to tune in for the rare watch parties starting tomorrow and running through Friday. And they culminate in the Celebration of Hope fundraiser and concert on September 20th, which you don't want to miss. Of course, none of this would be possible without the incredible generosity of Global Genes Live sponsors. So thank you to all of the sponsors for your support of the rare disease community and for making tonight happen. Speaking of tonight, tonight's actually all about tomorrow and the incredible innovators who are endeavoring to make it a better place for rare young adults. It's truly a career highlight to get to introduce tonight's participants, starting with Zachary, the founder of Stupid Cancer and Offscript Media, Quita Christison, the outreach coordinator at Next Step, Dominique Goodson, a professional patient advocate with the Sickle Cell Community Consortium, Anna Laurent, the head of programs and initiatives at our Odyssey, and Andrew McMahon, singer and songwriter and the founder of the Dear Jack Foundation. Shortly, we're going to be digging into the unique challenges and experiences of rare young adults. So what are some words of wisdom that you'd like to share with a rare young adult, a teen, or your younger self? Let us know by using the hashtag 2020GG Summit and through Horizon's Rare Is caption box, which is going to be shared at the bottom of your screen and also in the comments section of the live stream. And by doing this, you can help empower the next generation of rare advocates. So with that, let's lead in to some words of wisdom from the original young adult advocacy leader himself, Zachary. All right, welcome, Matthew.
It's a pleasure to be here, Dakota. Good evening, everyone.
All right, so can we start off by you telling us a little bit about the origins of Stupid Cancer and really, what it was like beginning to lead the young adult cancer movement?
It's like that question, I have twins. The question is, what's it like raising twins? And I don't know. I've only known raising twins. I didn't, no one asks to become an advocate. No one wakes up and says, I can't wait to get sick and start a nonprofit. It kind of just became part of what I felt needed to be done after meeting my tribe. And I'm Googleable. You can learn my story. But the dime story is that I was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer in college. I lived, spoiler alert, but 7 years later, I finally met a peer. It took me 7 years to roam the earth and know that I wasn't alone. And that was the outlet from the cord that helped me realize I could do something in the nonprofit space. So Stupid Cancer, at its core, was what I wished I had 20 years, actually 10 years prior to when I founded it. But I really felt there needed to be something that was intentionally for adolescents, young adults, and long-term pediatric cancer survivors, because it's wasn't better or worse than children or adults or older adults. It was just different, and there was a demand for that to convene and coalesce into a community that didn't know it needed itself.
And what was particularly helpful in really galvanizing that movement and really getting your start?
I think not being dependent on pharma initially, so I could say what I want. But I mean that in all sincerity, because there had to be, a different approach to getting people's attention that wasn't filtered and watered down and overseen by, the powers that be that control content for legal purposes. And that's a necessary thing to have in our system. But the notion of authenticity at the time, 15, 20 years ago, everything was really just a lot of grassroots people that needed a bullhorn. And being able to convene people in a way that wasn't wristbands and Hallmark cards and ribbons and body parts was refreshing. So I felt what helped give me the support that I needed were the people that believed in what I was trying to accomplish. And it was really built together. Hence the movement. No one plans to start a movement. I was just trying to do something a little different and disruptive. So, there is no one thing that happened that made all this happen. It was raise all boats, and credit where credit is due to all the people that preceded me.
And so, along with that movement, was there a moment where you sort of realized that you weren't just leading an organization and founding an organization, you really were leading a movement, creating this social impact of young adults with cancer coming together and starting to, talk about the broader issues that this community faces? Is there sort of one moment that stands out to you where that realization happened?
Yeah, I mean, there are many, but if I were to think of something really tactical and something you could grab and see, it was the emergence of many other young adult cancer conferences around the country, cropping out of, Stupid Cancer had one big one every year and a couple of micro ones here and there. But back in 2005, when all this began, there were none. And even today in 2020, there's like 15 or 20 conferences a year at minimum, just for young adults and adolescents around the country. So if I put my finger on one thing, it's not copycat. They were really solving a need and filling gaps in spaces where the grassroots desired it to be. So I would say the pollinization out to the country to create more young adult cancer events is where I knew that there was something much bigger than this.
And speaking of events, can you tell us a little bit about CancerCon and the origins there and just what it's like to throw this massive event and convene all these young adults together for the first time?
Right. So in 2007, I started this with a website in my basement, and someone handed me a mic just like this and said, you're going to start doing a radio show. And I said, what's a radio show? This is the internet. That didn't exist. The word podcast wasn't a word. But sure enough, I started the show, and 2007 was a crazy year. But the attention was there, and the desire to create an event was there. So again, the short story is that the Leukemia Lymphoma Society of New York City wanted to put together an event for young adults. So they worked with me, and I had no staff. So the OMG Cancer Summit was born in May of 2008 in New York City, and like 400 people showed up out of nowhere. But it set the precedent that there was a need and a market and a desire and a demand to convene in person in real life for young adults. So over the course of 13th year now. So OMG Cancer Summit became CancerCon in 2015 in Denver. But over the course of whatever that is, 13, 14 events, 15,000 attendees. We had road trips, we had meetups, they were 3.5 days. It became a phenomenon. And I think it just speaks to the endless need to fill, plugging holes in the dam. Where, yes, online is really important, but we know now more than ever in COVID, there's no substitute for being in real life with real people.
Absolutely. And you mentioned market. Did you have any challenges in finding support for disease agnostic but age specific initiatives?
Yeah, that's a book waiting to be written that I won't write. But at the end of the day, you start to think about how cancer is largely a disease of the aged, and that cancer under 40 is roughly 85,000 diagnoses a year versus 1.7 million, like 6% of it. So how do you decide to do something that's tumor agnostic and age specific that kind of figures out how to cookie cutter into a system that desires largely, on brand patients to get funding for? And the trick was really, I'd say the trick, like I knew what I was doing. What happened was the emergence of gene therapy and genetics and better trials and drugs that supported multiple tumors. It wasn't so critical to go to the body part cancer groups. It was interesting to go to the agnostic cancer groups where you can we want younger people. We want to talk about how long-term pediatric cancer has side effects, and the psychosocial nature of cancer is very different. It was studyable. So the rationale behind doing stories on survivorship and what we now call patient journey mapping and decision making, millennials and Gen Xers became way more relevant to the appetites of pharma budgets in terms of their marketing spend and their advocacy dollars, because it was easier to get us to tell our stories more authentically and to be more raw and more honest, and having a very different perspective. Because if it's just a lung cancer drug, it's not really a young adult cancer specific thing. But if it's lung cancer and breast cancer and colon cancer and prostate cancer and blood cancer, yeah, we were the community that became so desired by industry. And honestly, there was a bit of a cool factor to be like the cool millennial Gen X brand in cancer that was a little different and a little rough and edgy, and people wanted to be associated with us. Going to Vegas for 4 days, come on, that's pretty cool.
Awesome. And, transition is such a major topic, I think, when it comes to young adult patients, but we don't spend a lot of time talking about transition plans for young adult advocacy groups. But in 2019, you managed to successfully step down. You like that?
I like that question. I like that question.
So in 2019, you successfully managed to step down as CEO of Stupid Cancer. And can you tell us a little bit about that decision and about that process?
Yeah, I mean, it was highly nuanced and lots of different reasons, and I wrote about it on my LinkedIn page. But at the end of the day, I started this out newly married with no kids, off a decent career that I had to quit to start this up. And now I was 44 at the time. My kids turned 8, and life got different. Things started creaking and hurting that didn't hurt before, and you move on to a different phase of life. And I didn't feel like I was being the father I wanted to be to my growing children. So that's pretty much it. I wanted to spend more time with my family. I felt I had built a good glass ceiling for myself, but the only way up was out. And I also reconciled that young adult cancer had a lot of strategic planning in it, like wonky public policy stuff in the 2000s about what we'd like to see happen in 10 or 15 years. And I reviewed those documents that I still have, those public policy documents, and pretty much nearly everything we had aspired to accomplish from a basic level had been done institutionally. Best practices, guidelines, standards of care, mandates, HR benefits, peer-to-peer, research, psychosocial studies. It was all done. So with a very, aspirational asterisk against mission accomplished, I had felt like the boulder didn't need to be pushed up the hill as much anymore, and I could move on to the next bottom of the next mountain.
And you're definitely doing that, that's for sure. Well, with 2 minutes left, I want to make sure I ask you one of my favorite questions to ask, which is inspired by what I think is the coolest swag item that anyone has, which is Stupid Cancer's actual physical, literal Stupid Cancer card. What is the favorite time that you've ever played the cancer card?
Speeding ticket.
Oh, you're a speeding ticket guy, man. All right, so you got out of it?
Yeah, I told him I was like 15 years out of cancer, but I was bald. So I said, I'm sorry, I'm late to go see my neurologist or my neurosurgeon. I'm late to see my neurosurgeon. And I showed him the picture of my neurosurgeon on my phone. And he said, go, move along.
That's awesome. I love it. I need to use that myself. I just have a picture of my oncologist. So as we're about to transition into our panel of changemakers who are trying to drive the rare young adult movement, do you have any words of wisdom or advice for rare young adult advocates?
Advocacy matters in any form or shape it takes. And the only thing that's ever changed anything are the people that need that change to happen.
Wow. All right. That's great. That's fantastic advice. And you were leading us into our next panel. I'm super excited to talk to the next Changemakers, but it was such a pleasure, Matthew, Zachary. Just always a treat getting to speak with you and hearing about all of your innovations. So thank you for your time.
Absolute pleasure, Dakota. Good night, everyone.
All right. All right, so I think we're getting ready to bring our panelists up shortly. Again, remember, if you have a chance to share some words of wisdom about, what it's like to be a rare young adult or things you wish you could tell yourself as a young adult, please go to rareiscommunity.com/shareyourrareis. All right, and now we have our panelists. All right, welcome everybody. I'm hoping you guys can start by introducing yourself and your advocacy work that you do with your organizations and young adults. Dominique, do you want to start?
Hello, my name is Dominique Goodson. I am a sickle cell disease professional advocate. I work with the Sickle Cell Consortium. I am the Dean of University there, the Dean of Warrior University there. I also work with a few other sickle cell organizations. Scanza, I'm a peer leader there, and I also teach chronic self-management as well with them. And then I also co-founded Sickle Cell Disease Community Forum, which is an online-based informational kind of hotspot where we put out information all about sickle cell disease. We talk about the conferences that they have. We just had a therapeutics conference today, so I tweeted about that conference the entire time. And yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Thank you, Dominique. Anna, do you want to hear that?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Laurent. I am the head of programs and initiatives at Our Odyssey, which is a nonprofit that provides social and emotional support to young adults 18 to 35 with the hope of improving their quality of life. And so we do that through different meetups that are informal as a way to really drive that organic social connections in a really safe space. And we're a little over a year old now, but I've been doing advocacy work for quite some time before that. I myself have a rare disease called Alagille syndrome and kind of got started with my own disease-specific patient advocacy group and went from there and then saw that there wasn't a whole lot of support for young adults. And then that's when our Odyssey happened.
Fantastic. So glad our Odyssey started. All right, Quita?
Hi, everyone. I'm Quita. I use the she, her pronouns. I work at an organization called Next Step, and we work with teens and young adults with chronic illnesses, including rare genetic disorders. We really try to shatter those limitations of isolation, stigma, disempowerment that can come along with some of the daily lives and daily experiences of being someone who has a rare disorder. And we do that through different community workshops, music, therapy, and mentorship programs. We like to really get young people in rooms with other young people who have similar experiences and get them to that moment where they can say, I believe in me. I myself have a rare genetic disorder, so I also started my advocacy way back in the day. I've kind of been bopping all over in the advocacy world, and I'm just so happy I found a place at Next Step, and I'm so happy to be here tonight.
Oh, well, we're so glad to have you too. So I think when I talk about young adult advocacy, one of the most common questions I get asked right off the bat is, what is young adult defined as? And for me, I always have fun saying that my favorite thing about having had cancer in my 20s is that I get to be a young adult until I'm 40, according to the scientific literature. But I know in rare disease, we're still trying to sort out, what that definition is. So I'd like to ask each of you if you could, tell me how you define a rare young adult. Quita, you want to start?
Sure. So at Next Step, the organization I work for, we define it as 16 to 29. That's the population we work for, or work with, I should say. But I think it can go a little up there, because I know for me, I'm a little past that age group, and I'm still like, I need help adulting. Like, what?
Awesome. All right, Anna, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I very much agree that I think the range very much depends on like when it's a service focus. So I know for our Odyssey, we're 18 to 35, really because it's a lot of organic conversation, which means if someone under 18 is a part of our meetup, they might hear some things that are not super like age appropriate that I'm ready for yet. So just to make sure that doesn't happen, our age is 18 to 35. But we also, I know for myself, I feel like when you're 17 to 16 and you have a rare disease, you grow up much faster. So I generally kind of think the range is a little bit wider. It just all depends on, if it's an opinion or a service or things like that.
Absolutely. All right, Dominique, what about you and the sickle cell community?
I kind of agree with what Anna said, that when you do have a rare disease, you kind of grow up really quickly. And so for us, I know with the Sickle Cell Consortium and other sickle cell patients, we kind of consider young adults between the ages of around 14, 15 when they hit in that transition stage to 29, even though we transition in every part of our lives. But around 14 to 29, that stage, because you go through so much as you're transitioning and you're getting used to having this rare disease. You already got used to it as a kid. Now you have to get used to it as a young adult and know what to do and what not to do. And so that's what we qualify as young adults between the ages of 14 to 29.
Absolutely. And do you do any specific programming to sort of call out maybe some of the 14 to 19-year-olds or, that younger, just transitioning population?
We do. I work with quite a few different organizations. I know with my hospital, we do a transition program where I'm also a mentor with helping transition. And so the kids, they start at like 13 years old and they get to talk to adults that are living with sickle cell. So they get to know what to expect when they're hitting that certain age. And they're able to keep those adults as they're going, or if they want transition to someone that's hitting that older stage once they hit a certain stage. And then we also do it at the Sickle Cell Consortium. At our conference, we have different sections for young adults with different topics. We have it for all men and we have all women, but just things that they're going to need to know or need to understand as they're transitioning from being kids with a rare disease to being a young adult with a rare disease. It's two totally different things.
Totally agree. All right. So now that we've got the age range out of the way, most common question done, I think another thing, we all say like the unique challenges that rare young adults face. It's sort of like a buzzwordy thing. I say it myself. What are the unique challenges? Anna, you want to start?
Yeah, for sure. I think the way I describe it to people oftentimes is young adulthood is hard, whether you have a rare disease or not. And then you add a rare disease to it and it makes it all unique. And so I think that's the biggest aspect. I also think some of the effects is the mental health side that I feel like often isn't talked about enough. And that impact that transition makes in having a rare disease while navigating an adulthood, mental health is a huge, it's impacted. And so I think that's part of that unique need, because as you become a young adult, you're also transitioning into care, into different care. You're transitioning into having to take over so many things and so many aspects. And so again, it's unique that you're juggling so many different areas of life. I know for myself, like I used to categorize that I had my quote unquote normal young adult things and then I had my rare disease things, because I was kind of in denial of how those things were really interacting. And so I think just the amount of and the impact of rare disease makes all of those quote unquote normal things really unique and provides a really unique barrier to some of those.
Absolutely. All right. Quita, any thoughts on unique issues young adults face?
Oh, sure. As Anna said, like anyone going through that transitionary period through adolescence to young adult is experiencing so many different emotions. Your hormones are raging. You don't know who you are as a person. You're friends with someone and not the next. And you're trying to appease your teachers, or you're maybe thinking about school after high school or something. And then you have that added layer of managing your disorder, or maybe you're just learning how to manage your disorder or take some ownership of your own care and your own narrative. You're just trying to be you. And at the same time, you don't want to be different than any of your peers. And so it can be really isolating to then have to really take a hard look at what are the things you can't ignore, because rare disease doesn't take a day off, right? It's going to catch up with you in one way or another and present itself. So being able to know your boundaries and respecting them can be a really big thing as you are growing up, and again, taking that ownership. It can be really hard, but once you can start to take that on, it can be also really rewarding.
Absolutely. All right, Dominique, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think they both touch on very important parts, but one of the important parts with transitioning is you're no longer a little precious king or queen. You're now this young adult. You're getting the boot. You don't have a pediatrician. There is no transition part, especially when it comes to the rare disease. And then it's that, okay, I have this rare disease. I'm an adult. I can't necessarily talk to family. I can't talk to friends. And being that this is a rare disease, there's not that many people out there that I can talk to, or I'm either too embarrassed to talk to about what's going on. So it's trying to find that balance of being normal, having your rare disease, and also making sure you take care of your health and still do the things that you want to do as a young adult. You want to be in relationships. You want to go and party with your friends. You want to be able to stay out. But if your disease or your condition doesn't let that happen, that's hard. And something Anna said, making sure you get that mental health that you need, because having a rare disease takes a lot out on you mentally. We grow up very quickly from the time we find out, and we become adults quickly. It's also dealing with all that as well. So it's quite a bit, but making sure you get the health care that you need as an adult, even though you just got the boot from your pediatrician. So making sure you get the care that you need, making sure you're getting your mental also taken care of, and knowing just because you have a condition doesn't mean it has to have you.
Definitely. So balance, boundaries, and isolation. Oh my. And yeah, I think a lot to what you said, Dominique. I remember I had assembled my medical team. I had my oncologist. I had all the people, and then remembering. So it wasn't until I was at a support group I was running, and someone mentioned, "Oh yeah, my social worker said this." I was like, "We can have a social worker? I should have like psychosocial built in." It was like a revolution. So totally, it's a big issue, the mental health element. I guess speaking of issues, what are some of the biggest challenges that you guys have faced as young adult advocates? Anna, you want to take us off?
Oh, what a question. I think the biggest one that I personally have faced is, I think, being taken as seriously as older adults. I think oftentimes that age aspect tends to just instantly lose respect or lose the buy-in to what we have to share. I know I faced that in my journey with advocacy of having these really great ideas that I now, especially with our Odyssey, know are really great ideas, but being told it wasn't important enough, or I should have someone else do this, or things like that. So I think kind of the lack of respect and buy-in is a really large issue. I think the other aspect of that is, once you are taken seriously, remembering that you do have a rare disease. I think that is oftentimes forgotten sometimes if you become successful, quote unquote, as an advocate. And I think sometimes it's forgotten that you are someone you're a young adult, and there's all these different aspects of you, and you're having rare disease the whole time. And that is what gives us a lot of our knowledge and our experience and our power. And so that can be really empowering when it's taken seriously, when it's respected, but sometimes it's kind of ignored. And so I think it's a balance there. But I think for me, those were probably the two largest issues. And then again, that mental health aspect, I think that's just not talked about enough. Or it might be talked about, but it's not addressed. I've been a part of many conversations that bring up mental health with no plan or no discussion of a plan to really address the mental health needs, which, is a really big deal. And I think that's a really large issue, especially with my disease. I know a lot of times we lose a lot of patients at a very young age. And so it kind of sometimes feels like, I'm sure it's that way for a lot of rare diseases. And so it's like, okay, well, we got to young adulthood. Now what? And so there needs to be a now what? There needs to be that support that's there for kiddos and their families. We need that for young adults, and that's finally starting to happen. But I think it's still an issue that there's not a lot out there.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I think thanks to the advancements of all these medical treatments, we're seeing more and more rare kids live into young adulthood. And that's where all of you come into play. And you make mental health not just a buzzword, but actually like come to fruition. And you create programming that actually is supportive of this age demographic. Dominique, any other thoughts? Biggest challenges you face as an advocate?
For me as a young adult, just period, was finding someone that also has sickle cell. Being that sickle cell is the largest rare disease in the United States, you wouldn't think it would be that hard. But the stigma of sickle cell and not being able to talk about it, I didn't really talk to anyone besides my doctor or anything about sickle cell or family or friends, and didn't really meet anyone that I became close friends with or knew or was able to talk about it. So one of the challenges was definitely having other young adults or even someone that has gone through what I've been through and was older. I hadn't met someone that was older than me that was living with sickle cell until I was like 29, and I'd be 35 in like 2 months. And so that part was extremely hard because there was no one to talk to. We didn't have mentoring programs where I could go and talk to someone. And so wanting to advocate and having doctors like, oh, you're faking your illness because you're reading a book. It's like, who do you go and talk to? Like, who goes and tell you what to say to the doctor, what to do? I didn't have any of that until I started advocating more and then meeting other people that was advocating. But one of the hardest challenges was not having other people with my illness to talk to as a young adult.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's, you make that first step of, I need to meet other people who get this. And then it's like, well, wait, where are they? You're like, okay, I know I have this problem. I know I have this need. And for me personally, I always attribute meeting other young adults with cancer to being just as responsible for me being here today as all the medical treatments that I've had. So I get it. Quita, what's your biggest challenge that you face as a young adult advocate?
I think I'm pretty much going to echo both Dominique and Anna. I also, being a young adult advocate, it was hard to get people to listen. I'm also a little person, and so I never want to quite attribute it to being a little person of why people don't take me seriously right off the bat, but I know it can play a factor at times. So being able to really be sure of my voice, I practice a lot, I worked a lot, took care of my mental health, went to therapy, and continued therapy to make sure that I know that I'm worth it, that I'm going to make a difference. Likewise, my rare condition is very rare. The incidence rate is 1 in 2 million. So I've only met one other person with my condition. And so I actually did start a Facebook group. Back when social media was, a force for good, I started a Facebook group, and we've met like 20 people worldwide who have it. So it's very exciting that we were able to connect, and we've got this like WhatsApp group, and half of the people are speaking Spanish. So I'm trying to like Google Translate and get back to like connecting. But the biggest challenge, is feeling that isolation. And so also in that same breath, I want to say that I looked for people who had similar experiences, not just my same diagnosis, because I knew it was going to be hard to find someone with the exact same, thing on paper. That working at Next Step, I've been able to to also connect with people who deal with pain management, who deal with being out of school for unplanned and unknown segments of time, and having to play the catch-up game, and having to, navigate social situations when you just want to hang with your pals, but you're like, I don't have the energy today. So a lot of all the things.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of young adult rare disease advocacy, right? Is it's not, you don't need to have someone who has your exact diagnosis. I mean, sometimes it's great when that happens, but it's really much more about the shared experiences of like, man, I'm like really struggling to keep up with school and all my doctor's appointments, or talking to friends, or talking about this on a date. Like those experiences span across the disease. That's why I love what all of you guys do. I guess sort of on that, what compelled you to go and make that step, that next step, if we will, from being, a young adult with a rare disease to being a young adult rare disease advocate more formally? Dominique, do you want to start us there?
So mine was kind of like a horror story, and a little bit. So there's a huge stigma in the sickle cell community, because sickle cell, the most our treatment up until lately was pain medicine, because we do have chronic pain. And I was in college. I believe it was like my last year. My last year was really horrible. I went to the emergency room, and I had ran out of pain medicine and was on the way to the doctor that day. Like, I made sure my doctor scheduled appointments on Friday, and the ER doctor that I saw, and this was the first time I think I had ever experienced any kind of discrimination or anything when it came to my health. Because during that time, I still looked like I was like 18. So sometimes they would send me to pediatrics, but I was like 21. He came in and asked what happened, and I explained what happened. And he was like, well, why didn't you take your meds? And I told him. And he was like, all of you people are just alike. Give her a shot of pain medicine and throw a prescription at me. And I was completely shocked. I was like, all of what people? Because at first I thought he was saying all you Black people. And then I realized when he said all you people, he was referring to sickle cell patients. And I was so shocked that I ended up getting like the paramedics, a couple of people at the hospital, and I took it to like all the way to the president of the hospital. He eventually got fired, but then I realized your voice is very powerful. If you speak up, if you're being mistreated, you have to speak up and do something about it. What he said was disgusting and rude. You became a doctor to help save lives, not to put your preconceived notions on somebody's health condition. And it wasn't right. And that's what made me start to advocate. After I got out of college, we had finished all of the hearings. And I was saying, like, you know what we need to do? And I was going back to my regular hospital. We need to do something better, because the ER doctors shouldn't be allowed to treat patients this way. It shouldn't matter what disease I have. It shouldn't matter what color I am. All that matters is I'm sick. You're supposed to treat me. And so from that point, I was like, no, if I'm getting this, and I consider me to be extremely nice, then what are other patients that may be a little difficult? What's happening to them? And so that's when I started to advocate.
Wow. I hate that happened to you, but I'm really glad that it's galvanized you to become the incredible advocate that you are today. Anna, was there a moment that made you switch to becoming an advocate?
Well, I think I can speak for a lot of people when I say, like, I think when you have a rare disease, you've always been an advocate. You just didn't really have the term for it. I think that it was much more of a mindful choice. When I got into college, similar to Quita, I had also started a young adult Facebook group specifically for my disease. And it was in response to our community losing someone who was a young adult who had kind of been this huge beacon of hope for us. And she passed away from the condition. And all of us were grieving across the world. And I had this moment of, like, I don't know, just clarification of, oh my gosh, if Elena was looking down on us right now, she's like, what are you all doing? I connected all of you and you're just grieving, like, away from each other. And so that was when I started that Facebook group and ended up, being able to connect young adults across the world. And that was kind of that first step of that choice. After that, I'm going to be honest, it came from there being a lack of resources, of looking for myself and looking for my own needs, not finding anything, going to organizations, asking to help create something, not getting told no, but not getting told yes, and then finding other young adults that were experiencing the same thing, and then that really caused our Odyssey into existence. But I think that a huge part of it was really the fact of looking for resources and support that I wasn't getting. I think that was a huge step.
Yes, no, absolutely. I think, rare disease is the necessity of innovation and invention. So yeah, thank you for actually taking the mantle up, even though it's not what you set out to do initially, and making it happen so someone else doesn't have to look to the depths of the internet to find this resource. Quita, thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm not sure that there was a specific moment or a string of little moments, but I definitely knew that I loved healthcare. I loved the hospital. I loved my experiences. I had an amazing team that worked with me all through my childhood when I was in and out of the hospital. And I knew that I wanted to be a voice for patients, especially pediatric and especially adolescents. I've always had just this little heart for teens and young adults. And so I ended up following that path through my academia, and I ended up going for my master's in public health because I was like, I'm going to fight on the Hill. I'm going to be an advocate. But then when I got to school, which was a doozy for sure, any academic program I'm pretty sure is, but I met an amazing woman who she and I just bonded really over shoes, but she's also a little person. And so we bonded, and she told me of an amazing organization, Next Step, and the work that they do one-on-one and in groups with teens and young adults to really get that sense of community, to show that young people have a voice, their voice matters, and it makes them matter. And so knowing that I could do that type of work, I could be that one-on-one instead of kind of removed, and I fell in love with it. So I've just been so thankful that I'm able to do this type of work.
We're equally thankful you're doing this work. So you guys are all living with a rare disease, and you're all, doing all this advocacy work. Some of you also have full-time jobs on top of the work that you're doing here. Any experiences with burnout? Open to anyone. Dominique?
My burnout tends to be, it could get bad. I just experienced one, I want to say maybe a month ago. I started a new medication that wasn't seeming like, it was like it gave me a burst of energy at night, so I really wouldn't sleep that much. But during the day, I would have to work. And at the time, we was working on the Sickle Cell Consortium's 5th anniversary. And so my friends kept saying when they would call, like, why are you so snippy? Why are you so snippy? I'm like, I'm not snippy. I'm just busy with work. This is a lot of stuff. Like, I'll call you back. There's like, no, we've known you for going on like 15 years. Are you sure? Like, have you spoke to your therapist? I'm like, yes, I spoke to her. She was like, you may want to up your appointments to like twice a week. They could do it virtually. I was like, no, I'm fine. And then even with speaking to my therapist, she was like, yeah, you may want to slow things down. But I don't know what happened. I just everyone was like, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? And I just like, if someone asks me one more time, am I okay? Just let me do my job. Let me pretend I'm good. I always live by the rule, fake it till you make it. Let me do it. When we hit the camera, I'm gonna be good. When we're doing it, I'm gonna be good. I got you guys. Let me fake it till I make it. And just don't. But when someone asks me, was I good? Like one more time, I kind of like my mentor called afterwards, and I just lost it. She's like, "Are you okay? Because you don't sound like you're okay." I was like, and I lost it, and I realized it was because I was doing so much. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't really taking care of myself the proper way, and I wasn't eating properly as well. And then I didn't take time for myself to do things that I enjoy. And burnout is real, and it can affect not just you, but it affects the people around you. Like I think it was like a week after I finally got everything under control, my mental state good. I was calling people like for 3 days. I am so sorry. You guys know I'm not like that. It's just it was a lot going on. I apologize. It was like, yeah, we kind of figured something was wrong. It's like, yeah, I'm so sorry. It won't happen again. Like, it won't, I promised. But it probably would if I continue to just go ahead. But yeah, burnt, yeah, I've had some bad ones.
Yeah, no, don't worry. I've been there too. Quita or Anna, have you guys experienced burnout? Anything you want to share?
Oh, I definitely, yeah, especially this COVID-19 has brought on such a new reality that taking care of yourself has been of the utmost importance. And we like flipped every one of our programs to become virtual. So redesigning them and just learning all the new things about it. I was kind of just going, and that kept me focused, but then I would just crash. And so I really had a moment where I was like, I don't like, what am I doing? I need a break. And then I was like, where am I gonna go? The living room. So it was just one of those times that's like, you still have to figure out ways to take care of yourself, and you have to affirm what you're doing in maybe different ways than what was affirming you before. So learning the different ways to self-care and find the joy in what you do can help.
Absolutely. I guess going off of that, what kind of research do you think would benefit the rare disease community? We've got some researchers potentially in the audience here. Any thoughts on that, Anna?
Oh my goodness, thoughts on that? Yes. I think, I think a huge part of, I'm gonna keep saying the same thing, but mental health. I think there's not enough research on the impact that rare disease has on mental health. Physical health, we got it. We know. Mental health is not there. I think that burnout aspect is really important when it comes to research as well, because, I don't know, I can't speak for anyone else, but for myself, I know that advocacy became an unhealthy coping skill at one point for me. Being super focused into everything I could do for others, and because I couldn't control what was happening to me. And luckily, therapy is a great thing. But, I wish that I had known that just having a rare disease meant, hey, you probably should talk to someone about this, just so that when things happen, you're better prepared to deal with it. Like, I wish there had been people to tell me that. And I think if there's more research done to continue to show, so that, organizations like Next Step and our Odyssey and the multiple ones that Dominique is a part of, if there's research to show that this is a problem, then more funding can come for those organizations, because a lot of those resources are free. And so I think it's really important for that to have research in order to be able to fund these really accessible resources.
Absolutely. Dominique, any thoughts on research you'd like to see?
I totally agree with her. I say research. One of the main things I always tell people, especially in the sickle cell community, that our emotions affect whether we have crisis attacks. They affect our health. You don't believe it? I didn't believe it until I was like out of college and was starting to write down what had happened and why I had a crisis attack. But our emotions play a huge role. If you see a doctor for your body, why not for your mind? And there is this huge stigma on mental health in in the United States for some unknown reason. Just because you go see a therapist doesn't mean you're crazy. I always tell people I see a therapist and I'm not crazy, but I go through so much because I have a chronic and a rare disease that I need to for my sanity, for the sanity of my family and friends also. I don't know if they could handle me if I bottled everything up, because then it explodes. That's the other thing with rare disease. We also keep so much inside that we bottle it up and then it just explodes. So it definitely needs to be more research on mental health. We have a lot on the body and on therapies that are going to help with the pain or whatever you're experiencing, but we don't have anything to help with our mental. So
yep,
we definitely need more research.
So all those research out there, mental health and young adults, it's important. Quita, anything else to add other than mental health?
Yeah, I think absolutely mental health, but I think what I would love to drive home for researchers is remember that this is a person on the other side. And every diagnosis means that's a person. And if there is a way that you can get in touch or learn about what a daily life or a week is like in that person's life, that could change everything, because you might be able to see like, oh, they deal with chronic pain or they do this, but what does that mean? How does that impact them? How does that mean that they can get from their house to the grocery store or all these things? Remember that we are people and we have full and whole lives.
Man, I couldn't have said it better myself. So I guess if you guys were all of your organizations was written a blank check for you to do one rare young adult program, how would you use that money? Quita, we'll carry on with you.
Oh my goodness, that is such pressure. I again just want to figure out the ways. So it'd probably be like part research, part like getting young people together to see what are the projects they want to do, what is the advocacy they want to do, and how do they want to do it. Do they want to contact their legislators? Do they want to write a movie? Do they want to sing a musical on stage? Like, what do young people want to do? So I would love to just have no expenses or all expense paid, like kind of a think tank with all my young people.
Ooh, interesting. All right, Dominique, how would you spend your blank check?
Mine would be kind of similar, except for it wouldn't necessarily be a think tank, but I would invite all the young adults and the rare community just to get together and have fun. Like when I was in high school, we had like all the high schools in the city got together for a picnic. So it would be something like that, like a picnic, just something fun that they don't have to think, they don't have to worry about anything. They can meet other people that have their conditions and talk and just be together and be able to just have fun and forget for one day that you have a chronic or a rare disease.
Awesome. All right, Anna, how are you using your money?
All right. So I think with that blank check, it would be providing training to specific patient advocacy groups to be able to have their own meetups specifically for their disease, their rare disease young adults. Since we've, come really far and figured out a really great, framework for it, being able to, for free, bring it no matter how big, how small, being able to provide that, train their young adults to be able to facilitate those things and empower them. Oh, that would be amazing.
So lots of meeting of the minds I'm hearing. So we've got a quick few seconds left. With that, we're inviting everyone to share, something to a rare young adult out there, words of wisdom or encouragement. Do you quickly, each of you have like a few words you'd like to share to a rare young adult out there? Dominique, I'll start with you.
You have a rare disease. The rare disease doesn't have you. Live your life to the fullest. Do whatever you want to do. We only have one life.
Awesome. Anna?
Your experience is your experience and no one can argue with it. Therefore, use your voice, your words, writing, whatever it is that you feel power in, and know that there is power in that and no one can argue with it.
Incredible. Quita, take us home.
Sure. You are your best expert. You know your body and more than anyone else will ever. And you are a whole person and you deserve to be treated as a whole person.
Fantastic. I couldn't have asked for better words. And yeah, are you guys all out there feeling as motivated as I am by these incredible change makers? Well, the good news is that you too can be part of life-changing rare disease programming like Global Genes Rare Impact Grants by texting RARE to 41444 or by visiting globalgenes.org/donate now to make your contribution. And with that, again, rare young adults are experts in transitioning. So I think we will transition to our final section of the night, which is hearing from Andrew McMahon. All right. Andrew McMahon, are you up here, Andrew?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Awesome. Yay. All right, welcome. So I'm hoping you can kick us off by telling us a little bit about the Dear Jack Foundation and the impetus behind it.
Well, first, I just want to say those were some beautiful final words from your panel. I couldn't agree more with everything you said there. For me, I started Dear Jack. I'm a leukemia survivor. I was 22 when I was diagnosed, and found through my journey how just sort of how under-researched and under-supported the young adult cancer community really was, and how many things that I went through as a young adult facing cancer, feeling sort of alone and alienated and not really having a community around me. And so as I sort of came back to life and was so blessed and so fortunate to get back on my feet, and had these amazing fans who were so supportive throughout my entire process, and had already started doing grassroots fundraising on my behalf. There was a point where we realized, well, why don't we try and channel some of this energy and really get this money behind causes that we believe in, which started as a blood cancer charity. And to a certain extent, we did a lot of work with Leukemia and Lymphoma Society and other organizations that worked in that space, until a lot of the research came out about how underfunded AYA cancer was. And that's when we stepped up. I hired a staff, and we've been going ever since, and building amazing programs for patients that are in hospital, and also for survivors who have gotten on the other side. Because as anybody knows, when you're young and sick, even once you get better, there's a whole lot of wild waiting for you on the other side of that as you get acclimated to a life post illness.
Absolutely. As a fellow young adult with cancer, I've been on that wild side. I was actually watching your documentary last night to get me even more excited about today. And you had mentioned in there that, your story, your experience with disease was going to maybe make news for a second, and then it was going to be forgotten. Do you have any tips for how to make sure that the young adult patient story stays, center of mind in mainstream media and, with research and with industry support?
Well, I think it's about advocacy, and I think it's about finding places to tell your story, forums like the one that we're sitting in right now. For me, I think even after I was sick, in that immediate aftermath, I was a little scared to be that person, and I feel like there was a little bit of a hesitation on my part, now being, 15 years in remission, to me, cancer is a part of who I am. I was scared of that at first. But once you find your voice and you feel able to be an advocate, go do the work, and talk to your friends and engage with amazing folks like you guys are doing today, so that people who follow in your footsteps are able to do it maybe with a little more grace and a little more support than you were.
Incredible. I think you just answered my next question, which was, how does a rare young adult become a rock star like you in advocacy? But yeah, it sounds like just starting to talk about it and making the path easier for the next generation. I will ask you a question I asked Matt Zachary. What is the favorite time that you ever played the cancer card?
Oh, man. It was in a gas station outside of UCLA when I looked about as sick as you could possibly look. And I must have cut some lady off or something, not realizing it, being in my own spun out, whatever. And I go to pump my gas, and this woman pulls into the space next to me and just starts yelling at me and just really, and it was nasty. And I was very gaunt, and I was very pale, and she said some really horrible things to me. And I was able in that moment to pull my shirt up, and I had my port hanging off of my chest. And I was like, it's called cancer, actually. And she just, I feel terrible about it, but she was being so nasty. And literally she just jumped back in her car and drove away as fast as she could. But if you're going to be mean to a kid with cancer, you deserve a little bit of karma coming back your way, I think.
I tend to agree. You really played that cancer card hard. I like it. Well, I think you've got some songs in store for us, so I will let you take it away.
Yeah. So, this song is one that found me post-cancer, probably a year or two in, and I really did prop me up and save me in a lot of ways. It's called Swim. gotta swim, swim for your life. Swim for the music that saves you when you're not so sure you'll survive. You gotta swim, and swim when it hurts. The whole world is watching. You haven't come this far to fall off the earth. The currents will pull you away from your love. Just keep your head above. I found a tidal wave begging to tear down the dawn. Memories like bullets, they fired at me from a gun. A crack in the armor, I swim for brighter days despite the absence of sun. Choking on salt water, I'm not giving in. I swim. You gotta swim through nights that won't end. You swim for your families, your lovers, your sisters, your brothers, your friends. You gotta swim through wars without cause. Yeah, we swim for these lost politicians. They don't see that greed is a flaw. The currents will pull us away from our love. And just keep your head above. I found a tidal wave begging to tear down the dawn. Memories like bullets, they fired at me from a gun. A crack in the armor, I swim for brighter days despite the absence of sun. Choking on salt water, I'm not giving in. I'm not giving in. 'Cause I swim. You gotta swim, swim in the dark. Yeah, there's no shame in drifting. Feel the tide shifting and wait for the spark. You gotta swim, but don't let yourself sink. You just find the horizon. I promise you it's not as far as you think. The currents will drag us away from our love. Just keep your head above. Just keep your head above. Swim, swim. Thank you. So the next one I'm going to do is a song I wrote for my daughter. You know, weirdly for me, being sick, I was never the guy who was like, when you know, I'm so glad I got this disease. I think there's a lot of, I think there are a lot of people who are blessed with that. I didn't have that. But somehow magically when my daughter came along, I remember pushing her in a stroller, rolling through town when she was, gosh, only a few days old, and thinking to myself, man, I would not have met this little person if it hadn't been for what I'd gone through. And, you know, whoever's watching out there, if you're not sure if you'll find that moment, I'm telling you, it's waiting for you somewhere down the road. And that was this for me. This one's called Cecilia and the Satellite. I locked myself in a hotel room and waited all night for the walls to move. I've loved some girls that I barely knew, Made some friends and I've lost some too. Crashed my car, I was 17. My mother in the seat right next to me. The things I've learned from a broken mirror. How a face can change when a heart knows fear. For all the things my eyes have seen, the best by far is you. If I could fly, then I would know what life looks like from up above and down below. I'd keep you safe, I'd keep you dry. Don't be afraid, Cecilia, I'm the satellite. You're the sky. Oh, 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 oh. I've cafe crawled through Amsterdam. Been around the world with a punk rock band. And I've seen London and I played Japan. I've been knocked down, I got up again. For all the places I have been, I'm no place without you. If I could fly, then I would know what life looks like from up above and down below. I'd keep you safe, I'd keep you dry. Don't be afraid, Cecilia, I'm the satellite. And you're the sky. Oh, 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 For all the things my hands have held, the best by far is you. If I could fly, then I would know what life looks like from up above and down below. I'd keep you safe, I'd keep you dry. Don't be afraid, Cecilia, I'm the satellite. And you're the sky. Oh, and you're the sky. Oh, I'm the satellite. And you're the sky. Oh, and you're the sky.
Wow. Thank you so much, Andrew. The young adult patient community is incredibly lucky to have you as a true rock star through and through. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks so much for having me. It's an honor.
Fantastic. Well, thank you to Andrew and all of our Rockstar speakers and our sponsors. Again, thank you to our sponsors for your support of Global Genes Live. And now that you've heard from Andrew and our incredible speakers, don't forget to share your words of wisdom for other Rare young adults. You can do that by going to Rareis community / share your Rare is and share your thoughts. And remember that you can become part of life-changing rare disease programming by texting 41444, texting the word rare, and visiting globalgenes.org/donate now. Again, remember that even though we are closing out tonight, there's still a lot ahead. So be sure to tune in for the first day of the Rare Watch Parties, starting tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And watch rare films focused on just being diagnosed rare. You just heard from all these amazing rare young adult advocates who've been diagnosed. And also hear from podcasters Sean Baumstark and Kyle Bryant. Definitely you're not going to want to miss that. And if you haven't registered yet for the rest of the 2 weeks, what are you doing? Get on it. There's still time. Go to globalgenes.org/event/live. Thank you again to everyone here for showing up, and be on the lookout for the next generation of rare change makers. Thanks so much and good night.